Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're jumping into Vampire, the Masquerade Bloodlines 2, based on a pretty intense 30-hour review.
Yeah, it's a really interesting one. The source material paints this picture of, like, amazing highs, but also some really critical design problems.
ROMs that kind of broke the core ideas of being a vampire, right?
Exactly. So our mission today is really to unpack that contrast, figure out where the game, shone and where it kind of missed the mark on what makes vampire.
Okay, let's start with the world. Open world Seattle, that was the promise. But the review, it described it as basically 5 blocks by 5 blocks. That doesn't sound very open world.
It really doesn't. And that's the immediate weirdness, right? Because while the map size felt small, apparently getting around it was actually super fun.
Oh, right. The traversals, climbing walls, leaping between buildings.
Yeah, exactly. That part worked. But still, the feeling was, 5 by 5 blocks.
Yeah.
It's just not quite enough for that grand vampire RPG experience they seem to be going for.
And speaking of vampire experience, the blood. The survival aspect, that seems fundamental.
You'd think so, but here, blood was mostly just, like, fuel for powers, not about actually surviving day to day or week to week, apparently.
Yeah, the reviewer mentioned going a whole week without feeding and
literally nothing happened. 0 consequences. That just instantly kills any sense of, danger or desperation. The stakes just plummet.
Which connects to the next big failure point, right? The masquerade. The absolute #1 rule.
The core law. Keep the secret. Don't expose vampirism to humans. Breaking it should be catastrophic.
But it wasn't. The review said they tried, like, deliberately breaking it 100 times.
Yeah.
In front of people.
Yep. Flashing claws, using powers in public. And the result, cops show up for maybe 5 seconds, look around, and just leave.
Wow.
The reviewer called it impossible to fail, which for the Masquerade is just fundamentally wrong. No punishment, no real threat.
So, no survival pressure, no secrecy pressure. What about the internal struggle? The beast, that feeling of being a monster.
Another miss, sadly. The beast is supposed to be this ever-present danger, that you might lose control frenzy.
Right, kill someone you didn't mean to, that kind of thing.
Exactly. But they tried to trigger it, fed on the wrong people, killed innocents specifically to provoke a frenzy. And again, nothing. The mechanic just didn't engage.
You don't feel like a monster on the edge.
You feel like, and I quote, an angrier accountant, which is not quite the vibe, is it?
Yeah, definitely not. Okay, so the core vampire fantasy stuff, kind of shaky, but then the combat, that was apparently a whole different story.
Yeah, total opposite. The combat was described as, like, pulse-poundingly awesome, really high-octane, fast, brutal.
Okay, give me an example. What made it so good?
Well, blood sorcery, for instance. You could literally boil an enemy's blood until they exploded.
Whoa, okay.
And the melee was apparently super fast. Like, the reviewer cleared a room of 15 enemies in under 5 seconds fast. Just pure action movie stuff. It sounded like the absolute high point of the game.
That does sound cool.
Yeah.
But that makes the other stuff even more disappointing, doesn't it? Especially the progression. You play for 30 hours, you expect to get stronger.
Right. But the review slammed the progression. Or the lack of it, said they got all their best powers within the first 6 hours.
6 hours in a 30-hour game.
Yeah. And get this. The melee damage dealt in the final boss fight was apparently the exact same as damage dealt in the first minute of the game.
No stat growth. Nothing.
Seemingly not in that key area. So that 30-hour investment, it felt kind of pointless from a power gain perspective. Which is rough for an RPG.
And that feeling of your time being wasted. It apparently hit the ending, too. The story was good, right? They called it a political masterpiece.
The narrative setup, the choices, the clan politics, all praised. Really strong stuff. Huge decisions along the way.
But the payoff.
A 30-second voiceover. That's it. And according to the review, all those big choices you made, either completely nullified or just straight up erased. Gone.
Oof. That's brutal after investing in a story like that.
Yeah. A real betrayal of the players engaged.
So, wrapping this up for you listening, the verdict seems pretty clear. Bloodlines 2 sounds unique, definitely stylish. The combat is apparently amazing high energy.
And it's a big but. It's deeply flawed in the places that arguably matter most for a vampire game. The survival, the secrecy, the feeling of being a monster, the progression, the story payoff.
So yeah, the core mechanics just weren't there.
Which leads to a really interesting question for you to think about. We know the combat was great, the story setup was strong, so if a high-stakes RPG nails the action but fails on, say, meaningful progression or narrative resolution, What's the most essential thing it needs to get right to still be called a success? Is it the survival stakes, the feeling of growth, or that final story payoff, something to chew on?